doing something.
Hello and welcome to our Latinx Heritage Month 2021 keynote event. My name is Emmanuel Figueroa. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the Latinx Cultural Programming Intern here at the LCC. Before we begin, we'd like to read our
I
Latinx.
can't hear you.
Hello and welcome to our Latinx Heritage Month 2021 keynote speaker event. My name is Emmanuel Figueroa. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the Latinx Cultural Programming Intern here at UW-Madison. Before we begin, I'd like to read the land acknowledgement statement. The University of Wisconsin-Madison occupies a land their nation has called Dejo since time immemorial. In an 1832 treaty, the Ho-Chunk were forced to cede this territory. Decades of ethnic cleansing followed when both federal and state government repeatedly, but unsuccessfully, sought to forcibly remove the Ho-Chunk people from Wisconsin. This history of colonization informs our shared future of collaboration and innovation. Today, UW-Madison respects the inherent sovereignty of the Ho-Chunk Nation, along with the 11 other First Nations of Wisconsin. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truth every day. Thank you. Today we are streaming our keynote live from the MSC YouTube and the LCC Facebook page. Whether you're watching at the Embassy, Mimblitech, or at your laptop at home, we hope you will engage with our keynote through the comment section today. After the keynote, you will have a chance to leave comment and ask questions and interact with the keynote speaker. So please be sure to leave your comments below. Finally, we want to give a special thanks to Latinx Heritage Month Planning Committee for putting this event and the Gender and Sexuality Campus Center, Open House, the Public History Project for helping us host this event. Thank you once again for all you do. One last thing before we begin, we want to give a content warning for the following topics that might be discussed, including addiction, drug use, alcoholism, domestic abuse, homophobia, femphobia, and sex work. Now, I'm honored to introduce our Latinx Heritage Month 2021 keynote speaker, Curly Velasquez. Curly is an actor, content creator, and artist who celebrates all things Latinx and beautiful. He began his career in fashion work, working for celebrity photographer David LaChapelle and design icon Jeremy Scott, before starting his own line. By the age of 25, he was celebrated as one of the it designers in LA by H&M and directed a music video for Interscope Records. You may Curly produces and appears in BuzzFeed Latinx division Pero Like and is on Stars de Vida along with Netflix's documentary Mucho Mucho More. Now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Curly Velasquez.
Woo! Oh wait, can you see me? Oh yeah. Oh, I look crazy. Emmanuel!
Hi, how's it going?
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good. Oh my god, retrograde. Of course it's retrograde. I cackled so loud when they were like, they can't hear you, and then it just shut down. I laughed. That is the story of my life, by the way.
Honestly.
I am a glitch. All of it. Hi everyone, how's everyone doing? Thank you so much for coming to hang out. Emmanuel, you're doing a fantastic job. Yes, I know that it can be like a little like nerve-wracking. It is for me. That's what my whole talk is about, and that's what I always talk about. So props to you for killing it and being here with me today.
Well, thank you for joining us. And actually, right now, I'm going to let you do your thing, do your keynote. And thank you again for coming here. And I hope you have a lot of fun.
Amazing. Thank you, Cariño. And everyone else, thank you so much for hanging with me. This is actually a new talk. So there might be some glitches with me too. But estamos entre familia. Whenever people come interview with me at work or people work with me, I'm always like, estamos entre primos, primexes, and primas. And so I like to kind of keep that same thing. And so feel free to chat with me, talk it up. I'm open to discussing certain topics and just kind of, talking and hearing from all of y'all. I'm actually in the comments section, so I will be reading and engaging, just because I want to hear from everybody. Usually I'm there in the mix and I'm hugging. Oh, I just inhaled too hard in my pants. I was like, oh, my pants are too tight, I think. I didn't know what to wear either. But thank you so much, everybody, for being here and letting me hang. And I wish I could see all of your beautiful faces. I think it's so dope to be able to meet the future, to meet young people who really can do anything they want, if they want to. And there are a lot of different obstacles that we face coming from different communities. Specifically today, we'll talk about being Latina and being queer. And yay, lots of cheers. And I just want to talk to you. So the first thing that I wanted to say is that my talk is called Be Kind and Be Courageous. I am getting to know myself more and more every day. And one of the things that I realized as I've gotten older is that I'm afraid. I'm scared of everything. And I'm learning to be more open about it now. I am a high functioning anxious person, and that will show up in different ways. And it'll be, thank you, everybody. I see you leaving comments, and it'll show up in different ways. And I always think thank you for the love of the outfit. It's a blazer. And it's a, ¿cómo se dice? A cardigan. So, yeah, I always think about where did that come from? How did I become this anxious person? Why did I have it? And the older I get, the more that I realize that it's rooted in a lot of kind of generational trauma. So I was born in Hollywood, California, August 29th, 11/11. Oh, can you guys see my thing now? This is me. And I was born into a family that really used machismo against the femme spirit. I grew up in a household that was violent, physically abusive, and it kind of made me into this quiet queer kid, I have a weird fear of like going to the market. Like I'm always like, oh man, what happens if I get there? I always think I'm gonna die. I'm one of those people that think I'm gonna die every day, and I'm like, what happens if I get there and I fucking die? And like, and I park my car and I'm walking into the market and there's an earthquake and it collapses and I die. Like I'm that person, you know. And so even going on stages, even talking in front of a lot of people, I'm always like, man, I could really get hit by a bus right now. So I don't have to get on that stage. But it was something that early on, um, I knew that I needed to do something. I think that a lot of my anxiety is rooted in what I was taught as a kid. Me and my family, we talk about a lot of my friends here in LA. We talk about how we call it Mr. Thank you, Mr. Smith. And it's about like how we were always told to be quiet. What do they tell us when we go to people's houses? It's like, no tocas nada. Don't ask for nothing. Don't touch nothing. Siéntate ahí, sit down. Don't move. Don't say anything. And we're kind of taught to be small. And so when it comes to spaces, specifically like in the work environment, academia, places that are made and designed for white folk, it is hard to take up space. My dad was born in El Salvador. He came right before the Civil War. They settled in Hollywood, of all places, and he himself was the victim of abuse and violence. He came to LA underneath a bus with the luggage, undocumented, and it was so hot that he passed out. And when they got to where they were going to go, they opened up the bus, and they were just like, um, they thought he was dead, but he wasn't. He had just passed out. But it was like, damn, what is it like? What must that feel like to have to go under in the heat and travel all that way? Um, he has then been very open about how the way that he learned to communicate, the way that he learned to express himself was the way that the men in his family taught him to. And that was really through violence. He joined the military and it kind of transformed him in an entirely different way as well, in the sense that he lost even more of the ability to communicate. The person who kind of was essentially the victim of that violence and on the receiving end of that was my mother, who came to LA during the Civil War in El Salvador. She talks about how her abuela or her tia or somebody like that believed in this tradition where they would go look at the bodies that had died during the Civil War, and my mom would have to close the eyes of the people because it was believed that only a virgin touching and closing the eyes of the dead bodies could help them cross over, which is also kind of gnarly, like where you're like, what? I won't even touch like a gooey substance on the table, and you want me to go touch somebody's eyeballs who's like passed away. So it's kind of like, but she was taught to be quiet and she passed it on to me. My mom also came over undocumented, tuvo que cruzar mountains and rivers just to get to where she was. There's this movie that I think many of you might be too old. I mean, whoa, not too old, too young for. It's called Mi Familia, and there's a scene with J-Lo, and in it, she's like crossing this river and she's holding her little baby named Chucho, and she falls into the river, and it's a whole dramatic scene. And I always imagine like, oh, my poor mom had to like cross a river. And I always ask her, I'm like, Mama, like tell me the story about how you did it. And she's like, well, there was no water. And so we just walked across. And I'm like, cool. So you walked here. Which is also, it doesn't take away from the story, but it's also like, go off, lady. She came over and she also had an inability to communicate with me. She also was kind of like emotionally, I don't want to say stunted in a way, but it was like, it's just different where they came from. So lo and behold, they have little baby Curly, me. They didn't know how to raise a young queer kid. They just didn't get it. And I think that even today, with people still not knowing how to raise young queer kids. Imagine being young kids from Central America who are leaving a war-torn country the way that they did. It's going to be a little different. One of the things that they did instill in me early on was that no matter what I did, I needed to be the best. So they were very much like, if they thank you for the sunglasses compliment. Fashion. Still have a giant head, still have a lot of hair. They basically were like, look, we don't care. Si quieres limpiar un baño, if you want to clean the bathroom, make sure that your bathroom is the cleanest. If you want to do this, make sure that you're the best. And so I think that a lot of children of immigrants are kind of injected with this need to work, to provide, to be the best very early on. And it kind of was what motivated me into the future. Twice as hard as half as much. Yes, yes, ma'am. So one of the initial things that I learned in the beginning or that I went through was that I knew I had to do something, but I was so scared. Like, I was so scared of everything. Like my voice was too gay. I walked too gay. I was too this. And I was always getting bullied. And it was like, man, I should just be quiet and sit here and do nothing. But I knew that I wanted to do something. I knew that my spirit wanted to do something. And I remember seeing this on TV. Hopefully it works. So for those, I don't know if you can read the title with where you're at, but it is, that always happens to me too. Okay. It is our favorite, Selena. And I remember being like, holy shit, she's 6 years old in that video. I'm 9 years old. I am so behind. And it really started like this kind of feeling that a lot of us still feel now, that we're like, we're behind and we need to be ahead of the game. And I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I need to do something. I need to hurry up. And I started to look to other spaces to kind of provide the courage to become this person that I wanted to become. And the second time that I discovered that was through Whoopi Goldberg in the movie Sister Act, which you might also be too young for. But I wanted to show you my favorite scene. This is the scene that I used to emulate as a young person, and I literally would get on top of the tables. My dad would fix the pipes of like draining, like what was he said, like draining pipes? I don't know. And he would cut the pipes up, and I would pretend they were my microphones. But this is my favorite scene. I will follow him wherever he may go. There isn't an ocean too deep, a mountain too hard, it can keep me away. I will follow him. Ever since he touched my hands, I knew that near him I always must be, and nothing can keep me away. He is my destiny. I love it, I love it, I love it. And where he goes, he'll always be mine. It's so good. I don't know. I always love it. I'm always like, yep, yep. And as a kid, I just remember being like, whoa. Ginger Spice and Scary Spice were also really big things for me because I was like, wow, nobody knew what to do with my hair back in the day. I have very thick, coarse hair. People just didn't know what to do, how to help me, and I would get made fun of a lot everywhere I went because I just, people would make comments that my hair looked like carpet or my hair looked like this. And I remember that I liked my hair, but I was taught to feel like I needed to do something with it. And when I saw in Sister Act 1, Whoopi wears these beautiful wigs, and she also has big, beautiful hair. And I remember seeing her and seeing Scary Spice and seeing Ginger Spice and seeing people that I was like, wow, like I can absolutely exist however I want to exist. And I was so excited, and I was like, happy to be in the world. But my parents were not so happy about that. My parents would actually make me practice walking outside back and forth because they said that I walked too gay. Whereas most kids were allowed to play a certain amount of time, I had to practice learning how to walk appropriately. There was this instance where I was obsessed with Selena. I was obsessed with Selena my whole life. I still am. One of like the moments where I was like, holy shit, like what is my life? Is when Selena's sister Suzette DM'd me and we were like cool now. I'm like, I brag with my best friend Maya, by the way, Maya in the moment. I brag with her all the time because we're both big Selena fans. And she's like, I love Selena more. And I'm like, but Suzette's not in your DMs. Is she? Petty as fuck, but whatever. So basically, I had all these posters, and my mom went into my room in Little Mermaid King Triton style and destroyed all of my posters. She tore them off the walls and threw them in the trash. And I remember coming home and just being so broken and so sad. And it's something that still kind of gets to me, and I still get emotional because I'm like, why would you do that to a little kid? Like, what would compel you to destroy something that a child loves so much? Um, and my parents really became hyper aware of what I was into sexually. Like, what did I like? And I'm like, I'm a child. Who gives a shit what a child is into? Who gives a shit what a child likes? Let them exist and take care of them. But those were kind of the different tools that were not available to them. And yes, it's the fear of sexuality, you know, which I wanted to share this one thing with you. I'm actually not allowed to share it yet, but I'm like, fuck it, whatever. It's coming out soon. I was invited to collaborate with Hulu and Attention to talk about my story. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to share another one. So no one has seen this, but I'm going to share it with y'all. And I hope that you enjoy it. So let's see. Let me find the screen. Here we go. Share. All right. Okay. So let's see if I'm going to make this big. And then we can check it. And I'm going to take myself off so you can watch it. Beep, 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 beep.
Today, we're going to be talking about how my family had no idea that I was gay. Let's get started.
Hello, my name is Curly Velasquez. I am a writer, actor, personality. My family is from El Salvador and settled in one of the most famous cities in the world, Hollywood, California. I didn't really understand my sexuality as a kid. I walked differently. I spoke differently. I didn't even know that what I felt had a name until another boy in my 3rd grade class called me a slur. And I was like, I guess there's a name for what I'm feeling. Not a good name, but nonetheless, there was a name for it. I realized that being queer was kind of punk. I started to, in the 7th grade, come out slowly to my best friends, and we became kind of cool where my bullies would kind of try to use my sexuality against me, but I would give it right back. While I was becoming like a young queen bee at school, at home, I was kind of like, I needed to be quiet. I had to survive. I grew up in a household that was very much engulfed in machismo. Machismo in Latinidad is a currency. You are the man of the house, and nobody else really has any sort of say in the home. The more alpha you are, the more respected you are. My dad was a military man, and the way that he knew how to communicate was through violence, and I didn't feel safe coming out. I think my mom also didn't know how to deal with my queerness, but they didn't know any better, and it was just a thing of them trying to protect truly this big-headed little scrawny kid that was out here thinking that they were Celine. I always just thought that the only way that I could ever come out to them was that I would have to run away. I had to think of a master plan. I would write letters to Madonna in New York and tell her that I loved what she was doing with the community and that I just needed to be adopted. Dear Madonna, it is I, Curly, your favorite. I'm moving to New York because I need a place to stay as I am coming out to my parents who might not like that I'm coming out. Love, Curly. I don't know. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out that way. So imagine this, it's the late 90s, early 2000s. The internet is super new to a lot of people. And I asked my dad, I was like, hey, can we download this? All of my friends have it. I would really like to be able to communicate with them. My dad gave in. I think he understood that it was kind of something that was inevitable. And so we get the internet, and let's just say at the time for a 12, 13-year-old boy, the internet was the place to be. So I had heard that this 90s heartthrob had done a nude photo shoot. And I was set on finding these photos, like determined. I was there like, I'm gonna find this picture. I'm gonna look at him. I go and I find the picture and I start to see a bunch of like random like pop-up windows. And then it just stopped working. And I was like, oh no, what just happened? So I remember telling my dad, hey dad, something's wrong with the internet. It just stopped working. And he was like, okay, son, I'll figure it out. We'll see what's happening and it'll be running shortly, I'm sure. While I was going through all of this and searching the internet, I didn't know that the computer was keeping track of every place that you visited on the internet. No idea.
I go to my room, I put on my favorite 90s girl group, and I am wearing a giant t-shirt, high socks, and just like singing, going ham on my performance. I hear my dad call my middle name, Elsa Gab, which I knew something's up. So here I was, 12 years old, no plan, nowhere to go, and no idea if I was about to have a home to live in. I'm about to come out to him, but I'm wearing like essentially a dress and like high top socks. So I walk to the living room and my dad asked me to take a seat next to him. And he's like, so, I've noticed you've been looking at some stuff on the internet. Do you want to tell me what you've been looking at? What I remember was that I started crying and I started shouting for my mom, like, Mama, Mommy. But my mom, who's little chismosa, was also listening because I think she wanted in on the chisme too. This was going to be the day that I had to really decide whether I was going to take that step out of the closet or keep safe for just a little bit longer. But I decided, let's do this, girl. So my dad was like, are you gay? And I said, yes, I think I am. I was still crying and I was scared and I didn't want to be gay. And so my dad goes, okay, go to your room and we'll talk tomorrow. I think something clicked in his head, which is the above all else, this is your baby. This is somebody that came out of you and you need to love them and nourish them and protect them. And so something happened to this military man who his whole life had been told to be hard and rugged and macho. He softened up. Suddenly, I needed help. I needed an ally. And I'm lucky that that happened with both of my parents because they were like, oh, this queen is going to need a little help. My experience of coming out to my family is very unique. I wish that it was like the norm. And now in kind of like this full circle moment, my mom is the one on the internet now, educating people, getting into fights with people that she is like, they're homophobic, I'm just letting them know. Tienen que saber, can you believe this mother, she doesn't love her kid? And I'm like, Mom, that was you. But she feels like she's doing her duty and changing the world, which maybe she is. My dad has come to a space now, he's like, if I could do it all over again, I would have you, the same queer kid, exactly who you are. Thick eyeliner, crazy hair, big outfits. I wouldn't have it any other way. Here we are, because of a 90s heartthrob and an internet search history that I didn't even know existed. Make sure you clear your search history, all right? For everybody watching, clear it all.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm reading some of the comments in there. That's so nice. That's super sweet. Let me stop and then share again. So in saying that, like, I just wanted to, point out that, like, my parents eventually did come around and, we did grow and there was growth and there was a lot of opportunity to talk but there I was, like, this is me in high school, by the way. I had become this loud, proud diva. This is all my hair at the top of the photo. But I was too nervous. Oh, Kennedy, don't cry. I was too nervous I was now this anxious person who had lived in the closet, and I was too nervous to even take my SAT. I was nervous to try out for college. And the only thing that I knew how to do was how to use my body or how to do physical labor. And of course, I'm still thinking about being the best. So I knew that I was afraid, but that I was kind. And that was something that also was like, how can I use my kindness, not use it, but how can I be as kind as I can to move forward outside of my fear and kind of connect with other people. The first time that I ever kind of experienced anything that really just happened because I wasn't looking for anything. I just was wanting to connect to another human being. I was walking to a class. I did end up going to a fashion school where I signed my life away, but I ended up going to a fashion school and I had a 3-hour period between one class and the next. And I remember I charged my iPod. I don't know if they still have iPods today. I might be dating myself a little bit. But we charged my iPod and I walked by this room, which was the textile library, which is where my friend Francisco worked in. And as soon as I walked across, I said, good morning. And, oh, Kiana, not me and my girlfriend crying. Oh, okay. I walked across and my iPod stopped working. Like, it just shut off. And so I was like, okay, I should stay and talk longer. So I asked Francisco, how are you? And we ended up having this beautiful conversation that lasted 3 hours. We became lifetime friends. He was wildly depressed at the time. And this conversation really had motivated both of us to keep going. He was like, hold up, I know somebody that can help you in your career. And but here I was again, still afraid. But now I was in these white spaces. He put me in these white spaces and introduced me to this woman named Mama Makeup. Mama Makeup was responsible for kind of coming, being in. She sent everyone's makeup. She did Madonna's. She did Lady Gaga. She did Miley Cyrus. She sent everybody. But here I was, this little Latin kid, didn't know anything about anybody, and thrown into this world of not only whiteness but celebrity whiteness, which is a whole nother ball game. And I was thrusted into this world of like David LaChapelle world. And here I was, like my dreams. I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing something. We would be on set with Fergie and Daddy Yankee, Chris Rock, Naomi Campbell. And I was like, whoa, where am I? But I didn't know how to live in the moment. I didn't know anything because I was just like, can I go home and back to my mom? I just want to have like my little like pan con frijoles y queso and call it a night. And that's it. But I wanted to tell you this quick story, by the way. I always like to include a little bit of chisme in my life because, if you're my friend and you're having dinner with me, I'm like, I'm not a toxic chismoso. I'm very much like, I'm going to tell you about my life. I don't care about anybody else's life. I don't want to spread gossip. But okay, so this is a shoot. We did a 10, 11 look with Lady Gaga for Rolling Stone magazine. And I always wonder if I can get in trouble for the story, but it's not really a bad story. And so we're shooting this thing. You can look this up. All the images exist. They are several. And so we had catering and we ran out of catering. They ran out of food. And so they were like, Curly, can you go run and get food for Lady Gaga? By the way, I'm a horrible runner. I don't run. I didn't run then. I didn't run now. I don't run now. I actually got a D- in PE in high school because I didn't run. I would like go and literally run away. When they were like, it's time to run, I would run away. Who gets a D-? But anyways, so I get back, I bring her a salad because she wanted a Caesar salad. And they're like, Stephanie, I think they called her Stephanie. I'm pretty sure they called her Stephanie. This is Curly Stephanie. And she was kind of like dismissive, like, hi, whatever. And I remember being like, oh my God, like I'm so excited to meet Senora Gaga. And she's not, she didn't say thank you for her Caesar salad that I'm sweating over and I can't breathe. And I was like, whatever. So later on, she's wearing this, I believe it's a Mugler. I could be, I think it's Mugler. I think it's Mugler. So she's wearing this outfit and they put this baby on top of her and the baby pees all over her. Like, true story, pees all over her. I wonder if she remembers this, by the way. And I remember they were like, oh, the baby peed. And they were like, Curly, get a towel. And I come back and I give her towel. And she looked at me and she said, thank you so much, Curly. Thank you for, oh, yes, Chantel. She's amazing. You're right. I love Chantel. So, ding, ding, shing, bing, 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 bing. Oh, so I realized that me and this baby were in cahoots. Together, we were going to get Lady Gaga back. So shout out to this baby. You're probably in college now. Thank you for making her acknowledge me this day. That day, she was returning this outfit, and I don't know if you're familiar, she wore this in Paparazzi, which belonged to a designer named Jeremy Scott, who I ended up going to go work for. Jeremy Scott used to pay me $500 a month to work there. I literally would work there and I was just so excited. And I thought, I made it. I'm 22 years old. I'm a Latino. I want to get into fashion. I'm working for the IT designer in LA and I'm making $500. $500! I didn't make it. I was really poor. Most of my money went into paying parking tickets because we had to park on the street. And in LA, if you know LA, if you ever come to LA, watch out for the parking because they will take all of your money. This is me being very poor and wearing V-necks, which were very in. I wonder when V-necks are going to come back. Then I left to start my own line. I had no money. I basically would have to use any money that I got with unemployment, any money that I would get walking people's dogs, feeding their dogs, and sometimes money that I would try to get for sex work. I would use it to buy bundles of fabric, cheap fabric, and then I would ask to show in galleries. And I specifically worked with women of color the photo on the right, you can't really see everybody. And I would kind of, and the two girls on the right, they look like white girls. But I would dress them the way that all my girlfriends dressed at the time. High pony, lipstick, eyeliner only. I wasn't interested in like fashion, which is like the photo on the left. And I wanted to really promote ethnicity even back then. But I had a drinking problem. I wanted to escape. And I felt like the way that I could escape the best and the way that I could escape my anxiety and dealing with who I was, not feeling adequate enough, feeling like I was broke. I wasn't proud that I had to use money that I, had to find basically for my fabric. I wasn't buying luxurious fabrics like other designers or printing on things but the only way that I could escape that was to drink and to get really fucked up. Yes, self-medicating, exactly. And my favorites were alcohol, cocaine, and Molly, cigarettes as well. And of course, I would get drunk enough so that I could go on these sexual escapades. And I ended up almost losing everything because I just had no focus. Nobody would hire me. Nobody would take me on. Nicki Minaj's people wanted outfits, but I would get too drunk to finish it. J-Lo's people wanted some stuff. I would get too drunk to finish it. And I essentially ended up just having no work. I was afraid. I was still kind. I was afraid to be in these white spaces. I was courageous, but now I was an addict. I ended up in the kitchen at BuzzFeed. I was hired as the receptionist. And when I got there, I would say there were no phones. They were like, you're hired as the receptionist, but they had no phones. And they were like, you can spend most of your time in the kitchen. I had a manager at the time who treated me poorly. She was so mean. And I actually, for all the times that I would get drunk, for all the times that I would get fucked up, I never peed in my bed, but I would go home and I was so stressed from working at the kitchen at BuzzFeed that I would pee myself. And I would watch younger people. I was now 25 years old. I would watch people who were out of their, they were in their first jobs out of college. And startup world and internet world is very different than like your first time jobs. Like startup world is like you get snacks, you get free lunch, you get like gifts, you get all these different things. You get fired easily too, so don't get it twisted. Like it is not what it seems like it would be. But I basically was like, damn, I'm like serving lunch to all these kids who are making YouTube videos for a living, and I've already had this whole ass career. Oh no, not BuzzFeed. So they did some really great things in their heyday in the beginning. They've done a lot of good stuff. But while I was in there, I met one of my favorite people in the entire world, which is Quinta. Quinta now is a star, has her own show on HBO, has her own show coming out on ABC. And she was like, Curly, I saw this movie, the Cinderella movie, over the weekend. It reminded me of you so much in your situation. And all I could keep thinking was, be kind and be courageous. It's the quote in the movie. So Quinta, very early on, took me under her wing and gave me this thing of be kind and be courageous. So every day on my way to work, I would watch an episode of Steven Universe for anxiety purposes. And I would tell myself to be kind and be courageous. This is me in the back, by the way. I didn't really let a lot of people take photos of me in the kitchen, but I would. This is me in the back behind Andrew Ilnicki. And one of the things that I started to do was I created this lunch show. I was like, I would create this lunch show. I mean, I would serve lunches and people would kind of push by me to get their food, like move aside, da da da. And I was like, okay, how can I make space? How can I take up space in a world where I was told to be quiet and not do that? I need to like put my foot down. So I created this lunch show where I would go in middle of the entire studio and I would howl like, ow! Ladies and gentlemen, I would announce this huge lunch. I would get on my skateboard and announce what we were eating, and people would not push by me because all of a sudden I was making it about me, and I was making it like I was making everybody hold each other accountable. And by the way, as somebody who's quiet, I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to go in front of the studio and howl really loud, but I was like, it's something that I gotta do. It's just, I wouldn't do that today. I don't know what came over me. When you're younger, you get away with more shit. Do it. Ask for forgiveness later. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be the best person at serving these lunches. So these people at the studio would clap for me all the time. They would clap during the show. They would clap when I would go home. while my manager was trying to get me fired and get me out of there, the people had really chosen me to be a part of the community. This was my first video that Eugene from the Try Guys ever put me in.
So what do you want to do after high school?
I was in it for 2 seconds, but
what are you gonna do?
What time is it?
7:58. You got a couple minutes.
Oh my god.
It's 12:30, sir. You are late.
This course isn't elective. Everyone else here is so stupid.
But that
So
video,
what do you want to do after high school?
like, really changed my life. It changed everything. Suddenly I was in these videos, and suddenly, like, I was growing on the internet, and I was being asked to do different things. And mind you, I was still in the kitchen. If you've watched any BuzzFeed thing, anything, I fed all those people. I took care of all those people. Yo le limpiaba las nalgas. Like, I would take care of all of them. But now, BuzzFeed was catching on to the fact that I had an alcohol problem and a drug problem. So they brought me in, and they were like, what are you going to do? And by then I was like, you know what? I'm going to AA meetings. I'm trying to get help. I am going sober. And when I went sober, my life changed dramatically. We started Pero Like, and Pero Like just kind of changed the name of the game. We were a team of Latina creators. And to be honest, I never would have gotten here had I not gone sober, had I not gone through all the bullshit that I went through. Had I not done all the things that I wasn't proud of, I wouldn't have been here. Pero Like was doing things that were very different than what the Latina landscape, digital landscape was doing across the board. We just got some data, actually. This report came out that was talking about Latinx content at the time. I'm talking about Univision, Telemundo, Me Too, Flama. They were all doing similar things. Pero Like came out the gate talking about different things. We wanted to talk about Afro-Latinidad. We wanted to talk about being Asian and Latino. We wanted to talk about addiction, cholas, but pachucas, you know, talking about current events. And then talking about things that were relatable, like maybe not speaking the language that well, but still feeling like a part of the community. Wanting to talk about periods, like, because periods are normal. And then talking about addiction. The report, thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you for the love for Pero Like. The report actually came back and was saying that we were doing what people are doing now back then. And it's so cool because it feels like almost like a validation of sorts that we weren't doing it in vain, because our numbers weren't the same as other people. We weren't doing chancla content. We weren't doing just taco content. We were doing all of it. We weren't ashamed of parts of our culture. We just wanted to celebrate more. And so it was really cool to kind of be in this space of being able to be queer, and truly like one of the first queer Central Americans on a major platform. Being kind and being courageous allowed me to talk about my addiction. I think the video that I am the most proud of is kind of talking about this addiction. I usually play a little bit of this video, but I think we're running out of a little bit of time. And so I want, please go and watch it. It's really just a personal version of what I deal with as a person who has a drinking problem, essentially. Oh, this is real, by the way, waking up in front of someone's house. That is very me. This allowed for opportunities like Vida. You know, Vida found me. They found me on the internet. They were like, come and play yourself on this show. Thank you so much. Love for Madison. And also other places like E! And even Telemundo themselves ended up hitting me up. Now you see a lot more queer people on Latino platforms, but it really wasn't a thing when we were coming up. Sobriety has allowed me to check back with my family, to use language like generational trauma. My mom has since apologized. She did that thing where we had the conversation. I was asking her, like, she's like, ¿Qué quieres? ¿Qué tú quieres? Like, what do you want from me? And I'm like, I just want an apology. Like, apology, and an apology to that kid that you just hurt. And her face got really like, I always forget how to say like hinchada, like swollen. She was just so mad. And finally she hugged me and she was crying. She was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, that's all I want. My dad, you know, will still till this day be like, we can talk about what you experienced and the abuse as much as you want to, as much as you need to. And we have an open dialogue all the time. My abuela, who was a huge ally to me at the time, hugely problematic, insane person. People are always like, oh, Gladys is amazing. I'm like, Gladys is responsible for a lot of the trauma in this family. You know, she's now dealing with dementia, and I'll ask her abuela, like, do you think that you were a good person? And she's like, I was a great person. And, you know, I talked to my tia and my dad and other people who dealt with her, and they're like, Goddess was a horrible person. Let me just throw that out there. And my abuela's rebuttal is always like, if it wasn't for my ass dragging y'all across the desert, none of you would be here. So suck on that. So it's always like a back and forth of like, what's gonna happen? What does it mean at family parties? But it is what it is, right? With Latina families, like all the trauma, how do you get an 80-year-old woman to be like, you kind of just, okay, here we are. I wanted to just share some tidbits with some people. As somebody who lives in the intersectionality, it's hard to remember these things. I wanted to just tell you that as you go out into the world, as people, as Latina people, as queer people, as anybody just watching this today, like, no one is better than you. We are all afraid. Everybody has something in the closet. Everybody has done something fucked up. Everyone has been hurt. So just go out into the world and just be the best version of you. Maybe not the best version, but your favorite version of yourself as much as you can. Treat everyone like they're your family. That's what I do. Like if they cut you up in traffic, I'll be like, the other day, this woman was driving so slow in front of me. She cut me off and drove so slow. I went around her, I looked at her in my rearview mirror, and I saw that she looked like my tia. And I was like, Señora! Ese me quitó. Like I wasn't so angry anymore. I was like, it's fine, señora, it's cool. Like drive slow, live your life. It's your street, it's your world. Treat everyone like they sign your check. You know how like sometimes, and maybe I don't know if you're working, but like when your boss walks into the room versus when somebody else walks into the room, everyone is like, oh, hello, hi. Yes, I love your shoes. I love your, like, it's like this weird thing that people do every time that the boss walks in. It's so weird and you'll never be able to unsee it, but I try to treat everybody like they're my boss. I don't like kiss their ass. I don't do this, but I try to give them the same level of respect of like, you will sign my check. I see you. Like that same kind of reverence. Use your community, like be kind to others. They will add to your blessings. One of my favorite people to have ever existed was an Aries, Maya Angelou. She would say that, flashback to service industry. Yes. Oh my God. Tip people, be kind to people who are in the service industry, please, for the love of God. Maya Angelou would always say that if you leave the room and people have nothing but mean things to say about you, you have some work to do. But if you leave the room and people say, I really like them. I really like Olga. I really like Carlos, Nancy, Neon, Kennedy. It means that they add their blessings to your life. And when your community adds blessings, they get behind you, it really does help out a lot. I oftentimes talk about that we have inherited a lot of the fear and the trauma of our family based off of their circumstances or where they may have come from in time and space and whatever country they're from. But you also inherited their bravery. So use it. You also inherited their resilience. So tap into that, push back. We are the machetes, like we are the strength. And so it's like, keep going forward. The last thing is I trick myself into being courageous sometimes. I still do it every day. It's a little tip that I give to people. I oftentimes, when I get anxious about going to the supermarket, I'm like, there might be a hot guy waiting for you. Your soulmate might be there. Or if I'm worried about a meeting or if I'm worried about talking somewhere, I'm like, you might find a $10 bill on the floor. You never know. And so I get really excited to go, and I'm like, I'm going to the market. I'm gonna find this hot ass man and I'm gonna get married. And so I do these things to kind of help myself. I don't give up. I might have these issues. I might have these things that I'm getting help for. I'm in therapy. I have a lot of community, but there's still something that I live with. Addiction is something that I live with. But I also am pushing back with the way that I deal with those. And I practice all the time. The way that you practice singing, the way that you practice poetry, the way that you practice writing, you can also practice fighting back for your mental health and fighting back in different spaces and being kind and being courageous, not just with other people, but with yourself. The last thing I wanted to tell you guys, so, okay, one of my favorite movies is The Prince of Egypt. This woman is totally the villain in the movie. She's married to a horrible man, but I love her the way that she looks. I don't love her. But she says something really beautiful. She says, here the river brought you, it is here the river meant. And so the last thing that I always tell people is, and this is advice that I have to remember for myself, is truly trust the river. trust where life is taking you. Don't feel bad about the things that you didn't do. Everybody lives with an amount of regret. At least you should if you're a human and have a heart and you're alive. But trust that you are exactly where you are meant to be in this moment. I mean it. I promise you that in my life, in my drug-induced, dick-sucking, messy ass, drunk life, I have always woken up exactly where I was meant to be. And they weren't always the best, but I always found my way to the best place. I celebrate you. I love you all. The universe loves you. Love each other. I wish that I could be there and hug each and every single one of you and love you all, to remind you of the greatness that is you and your spirit. Thank you so much for coming to hang with me. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang with me for an hour. And I hope that we can have a little bit of a conversation before I have to go. But I'm open to any questions. I'm open to chatting. Let's talk. Let's do this.
Well, thank you so much, Curly, for talking with us and making us tear up a little bit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so let's all give Curly a round of applause. Obviously,
Oh my
after
God.
everything, thank you. I'm gonna say thank you, sending hearts, sending love.
I celebrate y'all, my young babies out there. Like, it's certainly a world out there that we're all living in. So I celebrate you all.
Right. So now that we really got to like hear your story, hear your experiences about your relationship with different intersectionalities, your discovery of middle like and the work you do, we'd just like to go on and answer a couple questions.
Of
Some of the
course.
some of the questions we already have submitted are like how have your political views evolved and shifted as you gotten older? I know like when you're younger, you were discovering yourself a lot and really discovered yourself at a young age. And I was wondering how like before you discovered that your political views have shifted and how they've evolved through you went through high school and as you went through the different like white like settings of Hollywood.
Amazing. So do you mean like my points of view just in general about life stuff, or?
Just like yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, if you are alive, no matter how old you are, I don't care. I just saw somebody say right now, I'm not a baby, but I think we're the same age. It's crazy to me because I'll talk to people who are like in their 50s, who are like to me, who I'm in my 30s, they're like, you're a baby. And then I'll talk to people in their 80s and they're talking to the 50-year-olds and they're like, you're a baby. And it's like, you're right. We are babies. Like, we are always evolving, always changing. Like, I cannot tell you the amount of things that have changed since I have been alive, from the way that people identify, from the way that people talk, from public and popular opinions, from my own opinion, from my own thoughts, rooted in my own limited information at the time and my own trauma. Like, it changes all the time. And so I think that that's something that I hope that people now will begin to give people a little bit of grace and understanding that the human is ever evolving. The human is ever growing. I mean, you think about things that were kind of like okay back in the day, right? Like child labor. There was a time when that was okay and people were like, whatever. And now you're like, oh my God, that's not a thing. So if you think about the human race evolving always, the individual always changes. It's interesting. I've had to like kind of grow up on the internet. At this point, I've been on the internet for like 8 years, I would say. And in 8 years, so much has changed. There are some things that I'm not proud of. There's some things that I'm so proud of. But that's really what it means to be alive. It just so happens that, you know, I did it on the internet. So have my opinions changed? Yes. How have they changed? Ooh, a lot of different ways.
Right. So going off of that, you were talking about there are a lot of things you aren't proud of, but there are also a lot of things that you are proud of. And Olga kind of brought up this question of like, when did you decide that like you really deserved all the success you're getting, all the work you're getting, that maybe even at times other people weren't recognizing?
I'm sorry, so when did I decide what was your question? I'm sorry.
That like you had like achieved a lot of success and that you really became confident in your work.
Oh, you know what? I really feel like I'm the type of person where I'm like, I have, as of recently, have been like, damn, I used to have to like hook up with not like ugly people in that way, but like people who were like ugly spirits, if you will, right? For some money, for some cash, to be able to pay for stuff. I used to have to like do some ugly things to make money. And now I'm in a space where I get to hang here and I can pay my water bill and I can pay my electricity. So it's a thing of like, oh yeah, like there is a level of success. I think that I'm trying to remember I'm trying to think that like how did I'm sorry, like can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. So when in your life, whether like maybe one point or multiple points, did you
Yeah,
really like really like be proud of your success, especially during times when people
got
wanted
it.
to take that away from you or didn't
So
recognize
yeah,
it?
so that's why I went all the way over here to bring it back here. I'm not sure when I ever got to a place of success. I'm not sure that I ever really got to that space.
Hmm.
Because it feels like we live in this world of like, when is it enough, right? When does it
Right.
end? I will say that I had moments where I was like, whoa, like when Suzette Quintanilla hit me up and I was like, whoa, Selena's sisters literally talking to me. We're on the phone chatting about like, you know, chatting about their past and learning more stories about Selena. Like that for me was like, who the fuck am I? How did I wake up? What is this life? You know? I think that I will always be that person in the kitchen. I never want to lose that. I never want
Hmm.
to lose the person who was okay with serving people their food,
Right.
sweeping after them, cleaning with un trapo after them. So the way that I see success is a little different because I'm always going to be that kid from the kitchen, no matter what.
Right. And that's honestly like obviously so heartwarming to hear. And then like going forward, I obviously assume you have like some goals. So like talking about your goals, like what do you see yourself doing in the future? I know you talked about your collaboration with Hulu, your past collaboration with other
Yeah.
artists and celebrities.
I mean, goals would be to move into like more mainstream media, to be able to tell stories in the way that I help facilitate at Pero. Like, I'm not interested in seeing even more light-skinned Latina people on. I want to see everybody. I want to see the diaspora on TV
Hmm.
telling their own stories. One of the things that I was very big about while I was at Pero like was like, we don't need to see more people who are like light. Like
Right.
I'm here, like I got found in the kitchen and I'm here, but like who else can we spotlight? Who else can we see? And so you saw a lot of that on our platform. I feel like my life right now is moving me into ways where I want to do have more of like a tangible change and see those things. Entertainment is kind of like this weird empty void where
Hmm.
success is really rooted in your last hit in your
Hmm.
it's a numbers game. It is always a numbers game. But when you can talk to people, when you can talk about different parts of our experiences, when you can allow people to be seen, that is like my ultimate goal. How do we keep showing up for each other in entertainment so that people all over the world can see themselves for the first time?
That's really awesome. So we have one of our other questions, saying how well from Nancy. There you go.
Yes.
So saying like complimenting you, you're such a great storyteller, and like which telenovelas did you watch growing up as a kid? Does that affect the way you present yourself now, or the way you storytell today as well?
Absolutely. And I can answer these all really fast too. I see you all and I'm so thankful. Telenovelas, yes. I actually wasn't allowed to watch them for a while because my dad used to say like, esos son cosas de mujeres, and I would sneak in and watch them with my mom anyways. Y'all might be too young, but you know, in the 90s, it was like Marimar, anything with Thalia, Pequeña Traviesa, Mi Pequeña Traviesa, Pequeña. There was one called Marisol. Enrique Iglesias sang the theme song. Dos Mujeres Un Camino, Selena was in it. So all these different things. I think a lot of us, we like to tell stories at our family gatherings, you know, like a Theo. My dad always remembers that they were supposed to get on a boat and the boat sunk. And he's like, you know, like they always tell the same story that the family was saved because we didn't get on this boat. So I think that that has really informed my ability to tell stories. And thank you so much. Neon, what was it like for people around you to decide to? What was it like for people around you when you were working through your addiction? Oh, you know, it took my community. People had to call me out. My best friend that I lived with here actually was like, I think you have a problem. And I sat on her bed and I just cried. She would hide wine bottles from me, and I would go into her room and look through everything to find her wine bottles. I was like, I'll pay her back later. Who cares? You know? And I would drink all of her wine and be like, can I pay you back? Can I buy you? And never pay her back. It was tough. And I also was a, what is it called when you're oh my God, I said it earlier, like somebody who you can still do things. Oh, I was a functioning alcoholic. So I was like, I have a job, I intern, I take a class in community college every now and then. If I want to get drunk, what was anybody going to tell me? I thought I was living it up with $500. Nobody had anything on me, you know? But I think that once I got help, people were like, we're happy that you got help. Should I do like, what are your favorite places to eat in LA? Shout out to home. Oh, I like local shops. Los Anayas Taqueria is down here. I live on the border of South Central and Mid-City. So there's like a lot of really cool restaurants down here that are family owned that I love. When did you decide to say, fuck it, I'm a star, I deserve this success? I'm not sure that I'm there yet. In my head, I've always had this weird tension between, I don't want to consider myself a star in my head. I consider myself a primo first and foremost, and somebody that I want you to be able to hug and say hello to and sit down next to. I want to be a human. I'm not sure that I've reached a star level in my head yet. When did I say, fuck it? I'm gonna be me. I do that every day. It's still really hard because sometimes I'm like, I just want to wear a hoodie, and then sometimes I'm like, no, girl, fuck it up. We're only young once. Do the thing. How has fashion and creating content engaged you in your Latinx community? How has fashion and creating content engaged you? You know, I've always dressed in ways that are kind of, I just put up a post, it's a mixture of like being Latine, things that are very kind of like staple pieces, whether it's like a crisp Dickies shirt and pants, long socks, with our slippers, wearing flannels, wearing our beanies, wearing Raiders, like wearing all these different things that are part of our culture. I've always mixed it in. And it's kind of cool because, you know, our lip liner, por ejemplo, my mom used to wear a dark lip liner, burgundy lipstick. My sister would have her eyeliner, things that are part of our culture that people would make fun of us for so long are fashionable. So the way that I engage with the content is kind of celebrating these kind of nuanced details that are very much a part of us and things that, you know, only we would understand, like wearing serapes, wearing ponchos, wearing straw hats, cowboy hats. My dad wears cowboy hats and straw hats, not because he's like, I want to be fashion, but because he literally was outside working all day long that he needed to block his, you know, his body from the sun. In the way that people use these hats. So that's the way that I kind of tap into these things. Like, this is us, gold hoops. My sister the other day was like, are you wearing mom's gold hoops? I was like, I'm not, but thank you.
So we have a question from Kennedy. I know we had talked a little bit about this before, but do you prefer the term Latinx or Latine, Latino, or do you have your own preference of how you'd like to identify us as a group?
So we talked about this earlier, and one of the things that I always say is like, if it means that somebody can see themselves, feel protected, feel heard, feel seen by changing one letter at the end of Latino, Latinx, Latine, take it. I don't care. I want you to feel seen. I want you to feel safe. Like, I don't own Latino. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna grow old and not even remember how to like hold my shit and my piss in. Take the word. I don't care. You know. It's also just like a thing of like Latino, Hispanic, all these words. They continue to celebrate the colonizer. And it's like, when will we celebrate indigeneity? When will we celebrate Blackness and Afro-Latinidad in the culture? Like, then when that term comes out, like, then let's talk. I don't care. Take the whole word. Take it with you, you know? More importantly, when people say like, you know, I talked about this earlier. My parents used to say, when I used to go, ¿Dónde vas? Where are you going? They would say, ¿Qué te importa? Like, mind your business, you know? And so for me, I'm like, Latinx, Hispanic, I'm like, ¿Qué te importa if somebody identifies as Latinx? ¿Qué te importa if somebody wants to identify as Latine? Like, it doesn't take away from you. It doesn't take away the fact that we still have a lot of work to do as a community. People don't even know what to call themselves in our community. Like, we have a lot of work to do. So do I love it? I love it. People get to feel seen and celebrated and safe. I love it all. You know, I like to call everybody like papitas fritas. You know, like So it's a thing of, if you feel good, if it makes people feel seen, let's do it. What do I like to be called? In between. I like Latino, Latine, Latinx. I'm like, when we get to, I'll be 80 years old, and when we get to the term, I'm like, that's what I'll be when I'm 80, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing. So going back to crystals, actually, we have Jocelyn Orozco asking, so have crystals been part of your journey of healing? And if so, which crystals are your favorite ones?
I was gonna be like, are we talking about crystals or drugs, like crystal meth? Which is like also like a big thing in the community out here. I never got into drugs in that way. Could have, but chose to not to. I chose not. Actually, sidebar. Whatever. I was gonna go into a whole other tangent about how I almost did crystal meth, but I didn't. Crystals. I like crystals. I like quartz a lot. As far as my healing goes, I don't use crystals as much. I use soil a lot and tree energy a lot. I do a lot of prayers on trees. If you learn about trees, they actually communicate beautifully with one another. There'll be like a mother tree that will give nutrients to a tree in the forest who doesn't have as much nutrients. The way that they are very much alive. I love tree magic. So as far as like how I connect to the universe and nature through magic, as a identifying bruje person, nature, things that are very much alive. My little plantitas that I talk to all the time. This one got mad at me the other day. I flirted with one of my friends, and she said, "Shut up!" and she fell, and I was like, "Whoa, there."
Do you see like that part of yourself going into your content in the future, especially when being like an activist to like different intersectional and underrepresented communities?
Yeah, I would like to tap into more. I need to. I feel like I try to be a little bit more open in my content. I think that because I didn't set out to be a content creator, I literally was working in the canteen kitchen at BuzzFeed. I forget that I'm like, oh, I need to be a little bit more open about parts of me that people want to know about, in order to kind of connect. It's a balance. I forget to take my phone off. I forget to take my phone out when I'm places. I'm still very much like a human being in real life. People who know me know that I make eye contact. I rarely check my phone when I'm with people. I want to make sure that in a world where influencers, I live in this world with influencers and internet people and social media and numbers and likes and shares. And I'm like, I just want to hear about you. I want to hear about people. I want to hear about how young people are destroying constructs as far as gender and police constructs. I want to hear about how senoras and older people get over broken hearts. How do you find love? Where's the perfect husband? What's the perfect wife partner? What is that? You know, does it exist? So yeah, that's where I'm at basically.
And we have time for one more question. So basically, to end it up on a lighter note, we just like to ask you, what are some of your hot takes on a variety of issues, maybe like Crocs, for example?
Oh my God, I just got a text right now. The editor in chief, if you will, Better Like, texted me because my best friend Maya in the moment, who was another personality at Better Like, she just bought Crocs, and everybody is a Croc fan at Better Like, and she and I are the last ones to not own Crocs. I'm very like old school, like slippers. I have my socks in. I'm wearing like my, you know what I mean? Like that's what I go out in. I wear like my Dickies, my high socks, my shorts, and my slippers. Crocs, to be honest, they're cool. I will always give Crocs their props. But I'm like, damn, their marketing team, give them a raise, because Crocs I put in CPO back in the day were like, what are those?
Right.
And now you're like, damn, that looks dope. You have little gems? What is that? What do you have inside your Crocs? Like, you want to see it, you know? So props to them. Also, sidebar, the fork was also not a popular thing back in the day. People were like, what the fuck is a fork? And then now most people have forks in their houses, right? So who knows? Maybe we stumbled on the new fork with the Crocs.
Right, right. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. I'd like to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to come talk to us here at UW-Madison. And I'm
Thank you
sure the
so
audience will
much.
do the same.
Thank you so much for having me, Emmanuel. You killed it. You slayed it.
Thank
You were a great host. You were a great moderator. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the people that hung out and, an hour and 20 minutes. Thank you so much. It really means the world to me. My spirit thanks you and loves you from afar. Cuídense and take care of each other, okay?
Okay, we definitely will do that. And thank you so much. Thank you for all those who watched this amazing event. We have a few more events coming up for this year's Latinx Heritage Month. Make sure to go follow the LHM events page with.edu dash Latinx. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming out. Have a good night.